Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deep South Homestead on Porch Time today. Well, today, my friends, is July the 4th, so I want to say happy 4th to all of you. You know, unlike Memorial Day, today is a day of celebration. It's a day to celebrate our independence and our freedom, and I think that that's a good thing. So, in keeping with that theme today, I want to talk about looking back, because I think it's important for us to not forget our forefathers. You know, our forefathers, let's just face it, they didn't have life like we have it. They had to struggle. They didn't get to run to grocery stores, and they didn't get to run to clothing stores to buy clothes, and run to feed stores and get the feed and seeds and stuff like that they needed. Our forefathers depended upon survival skills. And those survival skills determined whether they lived or died. If you ever go back and look at a lot of the old pictures, you don't see any overweight people hardly. I know when we was doing our genealogy, running my family tree back, Wanda found lots of pictures of my ancestors, and they were all thin. You know, men, women, kids. None of the clothes hardly fit. You know, there was a lot of things there that, and they didn't think anything about it. They were just trying to survive. And today, I want us to look at some of the things that helped them to survive. Now, some of these things you might have seen with me before, but I'm going back and looking at them again because I think it's important that we don't forget some of the things in life. Now, I have a particular instrument here. This is called a Scoble hoe. It has this hoe is basically got a, let me see if I can get it around where you can see it. It basically just has a hole in the end of it, a tapered hole, and the handle is a lot littler on this side down here than it is up here. And as a result, you would slide this hoe down on it until it comes to an end. It won't pull off at the end because the end is bigger than this is. The ring in this hoe is. Now this is a hoe that was given to me by a very dear friend, Amy. I pick at her a lot of times. I call her my girlfriend. She's I fell for that little young lady back when we first started. She just was a blessing to my heart, y'all. And she's having some physical issues here, and y'all keep her in your prayers because she has a lot of physical issues. And Wanda and I we just think the world of Amy, you know. But Amy thought about us, and she knew how I liked old things, so she actually found this hoe and mailed it to me, and it's an actual antique. It still has the stamping on the back side of it here, and I've done some Googling and looking, and that is the actual stamping. This hoe is quite old, and I'm thankful for that because I use this hoe on a regular basis. Now, I keep it oiled and, you know, where it doesn't rust bad or anything like that, and I keep it sharp. But this is one of the things that our forefathers used. They had stuff like this because, you see, if the handle in this hoe breaks or something happens to it, they can go out in the woods and cut another one down and just slip this head right back on it. Where these new hoes that we have on the market today, if the handle breaks in them, they're just throwaways. Our forefathers didn't throw things away. This is an antique. This thing here is probably over 100 years old. Now, and it's still around, and it's still getting used. So the old tools that were made to last. They were made to be continually used over and over again. Now, there's no telling how many of these handles has been put in this particular hoe. But the deal here is, this is sustainable right here. and our forefathers knew that, they bought stuff that could be used over and over and over, so they weren't constantly having to spend their money on things that needed to be replaced. Because you see, back then, we didn't live in a microwave society like we do now. When you purchased something, it had to last, and it had to do the job, and it had to be good for you. Now this here, what I like about this one is the hoe handle is like, I don't know, it's like 6 feet long. With this particular hoe, it's heavy enough and it's long enough, I don't have to do any bending over to actually do any kind of cutting with it. And it makes it real easy. Now, it was used on a lot of the plantations around. And they, as a matter of fact, if you go back and look at the history of this, the Scobles talks about their sons and how they would come down to the plantations and look around and just evaluate when they went back to their company up north to actually create and make these hoes. So that's some pretty interesting history. If you want to know about it, just Google Scoble hoes, and you'll find a lot of interesting information. I'm not going to sit here and talk about the history of it. I've already done that on a previous video. But this is one of the things I want to talk to you about. If you're going to be looking for stuff to use on the homestead, look for things like this. You know, I mean, they're on eBay. They're out there. You know, it may take some while, but you'll eventually find it. You know, this is just one of the things that that I have here that I noticed was used by our forefathers. And another thing is, you know, as far as we're talking about that, and I have my I have a sickle here. Now, this is an actual sickle. I just got through using this thing this morning. It's got to be oiled back down and got to be resharpened, because when I finish with them, I usually take them into the shop and I'll resharpen them and I'll oil them down so that they don't rust on me. But this hand sickle is very useful for grasses that you can't pull, or weeds and stuff like that. You can't run up around fence rows where I know today we use a weed eater. Let's just be honest. Today we use a weed eater. Our forefathers, the only weed eaters our forefathers had were goats and sickles. They had to get out and do it by hand. When I was a kid mowing yards, if you was going to weed eat along the edges of something, you used a sickle or a pair of scissors. We didn't have all these modern tools that we have now. This right here is an actual antique. It's been around, I don't even know how many years old this thing is. It's been around for a long, long time. Now, I love this thing, but let me tell you something. When this thing is sharp, you can end up with a lot of stitches in your left hand, because I'm right-handed. And this is a right-handed scythe. If your hand happens to be in the wrong place when you reach around to cut something, you're going to split your hand wide open. So that's why I don't let just anybody pick this tool up and use it, unless you've got a glove on your left hand, because it will cut you in a heartbeat. If it slips through that grass too fast and your hand's in the wrong place, you're cut. But you see, our forefathers were raised using these kind of things. They knew about this. The kids knew about this. Now, did they get cut? Yeah, they got cut. It happened. There wasn't all these safety warning things. It was just called common sense back then. But you know, this little hand sickle here, was definitely a tool that our forefathers used for gathering. You know, I'll even say this, during the Great Depression era, I've read lots of stories about people just trying to survive in the cities, and they had rabbits in cages in the backyard, and what they would do is they would go in the medians in the streets in the towns when the grass would come up deep, because you see, somebody had to go through with old-timey sling blades, and I have one of those, but I'm not going to show it here today. You had to sling it back and forth from side to side to cut these weeds. Well, the people who raising rabbits would take these little hand sickles in there, and they would take that grass and grab it by the handfuls, and they would just cut it. And they'd bring it home and lay it out on top of a tin roof, and they would dry it and use it for hay for the animals during the wintertime, the rabbits, or they'd feed it fresh to the rabbits, so the rabbits had fresh grass to keep them some meat going that lived inside the cities there. But another good tool, looking back on our heritage, that was part of America. Now, you know, there's lots of tools. Now, I've got one here. This one right here is a really old tool. This was my grandfather's fathers, my great-grandfathers. This thing you know, if you was going to drill a hole, it wasn't going to happen real fast. You know, in other words, you're going to have to put some effort into it. This thing here, you would sit here and you'd hold this thing and you'd go round and round and round and round. I mean, and I got an array of different bits for it that my grandfather left me. This one actually doesn't work now, but it actually has a system right in here, so you could stick it right up into the corner of a wall and it would ratchet. And you could drill a hole right up in the edge of a corner without having to turn this thing round and round and round. The ratchet part of it's actually froze up because it was out in an old shed. But, you know, if you want to change a bit in it, you just had to, you know, you unscrewed the end off of it here, and these bits come right out. They're, I don't know if you can tell it on the camera there, but they kind of, they're square on the end and kind of tapered. You just take that thing, there's a set of jaws down in there, you just drop it down in it, and you tighten it back. It's not going to slip like the modern day drills do, where you got the chuck in it and you get a bit too, you know, don't get it quite tight enough, and you start drilling into something, well, the bit stops and the drill is just sitting there spinning. That ain't going to happen with this. But with this one here is way over 100 years old. And you know what? Still drill a hole today. You know, our forefathers bought tools, and our country made tools that were made to last. And this is one of them here, the bracing bit, the old bracing bit. Faithful and true, when I'm back on the property somewhere and I don't want to have to hook a generator up and load it up and take it over there and drill a hole or a battery-powered drill, I'll take this thing right here over there, like if I'm putting a pin in a post to hang a gate on or something. A lot of times I just soon take this because I can sit there with this and drill a hole in it just about as fast as I can go hunt up all the other stuff and actually take it over there and drill the hole myself. Just takes a little bit more effort to do it. But it's a proven, tried way. Our forefathers survived using tools like this. Now, there's actually a tool that goes further back than that one. And that's going to be this one right here. Y'all, I've got mosquitoes all around me here everywhere. They're trying to bite me. So if you see me slap at something, it's mosquitoes. They are just horrendous in this 100-degree temperature and the humidity like 99% here. Yesterday it was 100% and 104 degrees. So, but here's this next one. Now this one had a big tapered auger bit that went in it too. Now this one, like if you was building a log home or just drilling a big hole through something, this come with a set of like 3 or 4 bits that came with it. Now I don't have the bits. I could go on eBay, I guess, and order them. Because I'm sure there's some antique ones out there somewhere. I think there's like maybe 3 or 4, but you just loosen these wing nuts up on the side of it here and put that bit in and tighten it back down. And you took this thing and you had to sit there and you had to turn it round and round and round to auger a hole down through something. Especially like in the corner of log cabins, they'd put wood pegs in them, and they'd put wood pegs in things like timber and frame construction and stuff like that. But our forefathers carried stuff like this around with them. And, you know, my friends, these are the things our country was founded on. The Industrial Revolution took a lot of this stuff away from us. And a lot of people today have no clue about these tools. But our forefathers knew about them, and most homesteads had them. Because they knew they needed them to be able to survive on the homesteads. And it breaks my heart that so much of our heritage is just gone, and the generation that's coming up now, I don't know, let's face it, you know, if you're not sitting here doing this, you don't know crap. You know, and we had some people here the other day, and they was telling me, they said, Danny, I don't know what's happened to the younger generation. It's like there's a disconnect just in one generation. And we have just tried to figure out what it is, and I'm probably going to do a video on this before long, because I know what the disconnect is. I hit on it here a while back in a video about computers. It's called If, Then, and Else. And I'm probably going to talk about that in one of my videos before long. How that the human mind in the last 25 years has been reprogrammed. We can't, in the last 25 years, the human mind does not work the way it has for the last, I don't know, 6,000 years or whatever. In a 25 to 30 year period, mankind has changed your brain function, the way it functions. And I've done some research on it, and I know that, and it's kind of scary, but I want to get a little bit more research done on it before I do a video on it. But it has to do with computer programming and if, then, and else. And we'll talk about that at a later time. But that's what's wrong. Why we don't have these tools here today is the Industrial Revolution took all this away from us and gave us electricity. It gave us power tools, gas engines. It gave us all the stuff that took away from any physical exertion that it took to do anything. You know, basically it's like, let's make our life more simple. Let's make our life easier. And as a result, our bodies have deteriorated because they don't have any physical attribute about them whatsoever. And now we have to go to the gym. We have to do all these other kind of things. We have to watch our cholesterol, watch our, whatever. And I'm no exception. I mean, I have physical issues right now just simply because I didn't heed when I was younger. You know, I lived like everybody else. I might as well just admit it. And now I'm paying the price. But, some other things I want to talk about is I have a thing here. Now this is not, I don't know how old you might say this is. This is something that I used as a young man myself. Now my dad had it for years. And so that's the reason I can't tell you. I could Google it, I guess, and find out about how old it is. But, these mosquitoes drive me crazy. But, here it is right here. I don't know if I can get it up close. Some people go, well, that's a wedge. Well, no, this is not a wedge. Well, it is a wedge, but it's not a wedge. This right here, for some of you guys who have lived on farms that had big tractors or your guys in heavy equipment would know what this is, or 18-wheelers or something like that. This is a tire changing tool. Now this thing's heavy. This thing probably weighs about 15 pounds sitting here. I've got my other arm propped up under my elbow to hold this up out here. This thing was used to break the tire loose from the bead on big tires. A lot of your military equipment, stuff like that, and big trucks and stuff, had to have it. But back before they had machines to do this, and I've broken many a tire down using these right here. You would stick this between the rim and the tire, stick it in there, and you take a big sledgehammer and you'd hit it on top like this, and this is called a bead breaker. You would break the bead loose from the tire and the rim. A lot of people in their life have never seen anything like this because they always went by a service station or somewhere like that and had their tires changed. And I don't think I got that one. And they, that's how you change tires. When you got ready on a farm and you needed a tire change, you didn't just run to the store and have a tire change. You took the hammer and the sledgehammer and a bead breaker, and you broke those tires down. And you took the inner tube out and you patched it and you put it back in, because there were no tubeless tires back then. Everything had an inner tube in it, and it had the real rubber on the inner tube. Most of the rubber inner tubes back then were an old red rubber, which was real rubber. You could make slingshots out of them. My dad and I made many a one of them. My grandpa used to make slingshots all the time, go rabbit hunting with them. We'd break up pieces of cast iron with a sledgehammer, and that's what we used to shoot rabbits with, was a slingshot. Because the rubber from these old tires was actual, real rubber. It's like surgical rubber we have today. And, kids now have no idea about that. Parents today wouldn't give a kid a slingshot for nothing in the world because they'd be afraid he'd do some damage with it. Well, when I was growing up, every kid had a slingshot hanging in the back pocket of his pants. Matter of fact, a lot of kids went to school with them hanging in the back pocket of their pants. We'd go around if we'd, during the winter time, down here before all the chemicals and the poisons all started getting put out, we used to shoot robins because there'd be hundreds of them on the ground. We'd shoot robins and we'd clean them and then we'd eat them. That was part of our meat when I was coming up. We'd go out on days that it was real, real cold and late in the evenings, right when the sun was going down, we'd take our slingshots out and we'd hunt rabbits. And we'd kill 4 or 5 rabbits with a slingshot. Now most people can't kill a rabbit with a gun. But back then we used slingshots to do it. You know, that's one of the old ways we were brought up doing. And these are some of the things I'm trying to tell y'all that's just been lost. These are just some lost things. Our forefathers knew all this stuff. You know, they were survivors. They didn't call them homesteaders back then. They just called it living. And I ain't gonna lie to y'all, I miss it. I mean, I really, really miss that simple lifestyle. That's why here at Deep South Homestead, we live as simple as we can. Now, I do still use some modern tools, but I still use a lot of my old tools. You know, I get out, I use that Scoble hoe all the time. I use this hand sickle. I use this bracing bit all the time. Now, I don't have to change tires, but if I did, I could because I have the tools to do it, and I know how to use them. But another thing, you know, we had a lady here visiting with us this past weekend. Very dear, sweet lady. She's been on our chats for quite a while. She used to go by Ginger Rose on there, and she had told us one time she was a botanist. And she would, you know, if I needed a question answered about certain plants, I knew I always had her I could go to because she dealt in molecular science and these different things. And well, she came to visit Deep South Homestead this past weekend. Well, while she was here, she said, I found something in the old house, and she said, I thought maybe you might enjoy it. And she handed me this. This here, I don't know if I can get this close enough that y'all can see what it is or not. I don't know if it's probably not going to focus, but it's a little triangle file with a handle, and the handle is a corn cob. Now, excuse me, to show you the ingeniousness of our forefathers, the corn cob has a soft core in it. Now, the core is soft enough that you can slide the point of a file up into it where the handle's supposed to go, but yet where the seeds was at on it is rough enough that your hand's not going to slip on it. Is that not ingenious, y'all? Using a corn cob for a file handle? Our forefathers knew some crap. You know? I like that. Now, you just say, well, you know, it's a triangle file, so what? Well, that triangle file was a very important tool on a homestead, used to be. And I'll tell you why. Because of this right here. Now, this is an old handsaw. This one belonged to my father-in-law, who was, he was in his late 70s when he passed away. This was his handsaw. Now, used to, if you was going to cut wood, you didn't pick a skill saw up. You know, you didn't go to a table saw, you didn't go to a radial arm saw, you didn't go to a chop saw, you went to a hand saw. And it was called a hand saw for a very good reason, because it went in your hand and you had to use a back and forth motion to cut something. Well, you know what? Just like any other tool, they get dull. Now, there's two tools that went along with this hand saw. A small triangle file used to sharpen these teeth on here, and it depended on how many teeth per inch as to how you sharpened it and how you set it. Now, there's another tool called a set tool, and I don't have it here with me right this minute, but you slide it down over this teeth here and you squeeze it and you set it based on how many teeth per inch, and it would set the set in these teeth. One tooth had to go this way and one had to go that way, and each one of them had to be filed on different angles to make this saw cut really easy. Now, this one is a finish saw. Now, they make what's called a ripping saw. It has large teeth on it right down through here. It's a cross-cut saw. This one's a cross-cut, excuse me. This one's made for cutting across the grain. Then you have a ripping saw, which has big teeth that's made for cutting up and down. Now, they also made a big hand saw. It had real big teeth on it that had to be set just like your old cross-cuts did for cutting lumber and for cutting wood. But, you know, this saw right here, I wouldn't dare to say if he had it when he was a kid, or young man, I should say. It's a good 75 years old. And you know what? It still cut a board today. And if nothing happens, 75 years from now, this saw will still cut another board. So you see, the old ways are not always bad. A lot of times, the old ways are more sustainable. And that's why at Deep South Homestead here, I have all these. Now, this is just some tools. I'm not going to bring all my tools out here. You know, I mean, we'd be here for hours. And this is not a review on these tools. This is just telling you, this is some of the tools that I keep here. I collect these things. I have people on our YouTube channel that send me tools that are old tools because they know I love to collect tools. And I collect them. I clean them up. I resharpen them. I reset everything, and I put them in my shop. And they're there if a life-changing event takes place. Now, occasionally I'll get them out and I'll use them. Like here the other day, I had to make some hammer handles. And I've got some more to make. And I may do a video. I made a video here a while back on making a ball peen hammer handle. That video is way down in the playlist down there somewhere. I don't know exactly where, but it's 600 something. It's maybe probably 500 something videos back. But I did make hammer handles with them, and I've got hatchets that I use. I chop the basic shapes out with a hatchet, and then I've got draw knives. I use those draw knives to kind of finish roughing something up, and then I've got little block planes and hand planes and all these kind of stuff that I finish some of this stuff up with, like the spoons that I carve. I do use some electric tools on them, but a lot of it's done by hand, which is why it takes so long to make one of these spoons. And I still do these kind of things because, like making homemade syrup, you know, going round and round in a circle we use a lawnmower because I don't have a mule, but we're going to look at getting a mule here at Deep South Homestead to do that with. Grinding cane and stuff like that. Our forefathers did this to make sugar for sweeteners and having syrup in the mornings. You know what I mean? They were just sustainable, y'all. The old ways are not always the bad ways. You know, looking back, I think we need to just understand that our forefathers, the ones that founded our country, and our family members, our ancestors, like we said in the beginning, they weren't big, healthy people, most of them kind of thin, but they knew how to survive. A lot of them didn't get 3 meals a day. They didn't have GMOs and MSGs and OMGs. You know, back then they had words. They didn't use letters. I mean, they didn't have all these chemicals. You know, in the 1950s, little product came out called Accent that people were told it was great. It would really enhance the taste of your food, the monosodium glutamates and stuff like that. And the people were tricked into believing that all this stuff was good for them. And at that point, our physical bodies, it took some time for it to take place in our physical bodies, but they begin to wear down now. And now we have more cancers and stuff like that, you know, striking people in this country. And nothing to say it could happen to me. You know, I mean, because we just don't know anymore. You know, and our forefathers, you know, there was some cancers back then, but they sure didn't deal with it like we do. You know, I mean, they got out, they worked. They sweated. They did like the Bible said. They worked by the sweat of their brow to make their living. And they kept tools like this on the homestead just simply because they didn't have electricity. They were truly off-grid. You know, a lot of people say they're off-grid. I haven't met very many people yet that's really off-grid. They have electricity of some kind, whether it's with solar, generator, or whatever. You know, in my opinion, that's, you know, I'm not off-grid right now. I don't want to be off-grid. I love my electricity. But our forefathers, they were truly what I call off-grid. They had no access to any kind of electricity. They got up when the sun came up. They went to bed when the sun went down. You know, if they had to sit around at night and look at anything, they did it with a coal oil lamp or a kerosene lantern or something like that, or candles. Anything like that. They had to make all that stuff by hand. And people, they just didn't have the luxuries we had. And you know what? I don't remember reading where you heard a lot of them complaining. But boy, you sure hear a lot of people complaining today. If that air conditioner don't work, people go to complaining. In the wintertime, if that heating unit don't kick in, people go to complaining. You know, so Our forefathers didn't do that. They got up, they built a fire if it was cold. They picked up a fan if they was hot. They didn't know what air conditioning was. Matter of fact, I never sat under air conditioning. Never had it when I was a kid. Didn't have it in the churches where we went. My first air conditioning came after I was married. I'd been married about 2 years when I got my first air conditioning unit, and it was a window unit. And when I felt that cold air blowing on that thing, I like froze to death. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to freeze to death. And I'd stay with a chill all the time till I got used to it. And then when I got used to it, then I couldn't take the heat no more like I used to could. You know, I felt like I was burning up all the time. So, a lot has changed. Now, is it for the better? Yeah, I don't want to give up my electricity. I don't want to go back to living the way my forefathers did. But you know, if I had to, I've got the tools and the knowledge to be able to do it. And here at Deep South Homestead, that's one of our goals, is to not try to push you to live that kind of lifestyle, but to tell you how it's done, just in case a life-changing event takes place. Now, we have a lot of people out there who live without electricity that's not hooked to the grid. I got a lot of friends. I call them friends. I've never actually met them face to face, but you take, you know, Zach over at American Homestead. You know, they've got some fantastic stuff out there. Their outdoor kitchens, their water catchment systems. You know, I just give them a thumbs up. I mean, I watch it and I'm like, man, I just would love to have some of this stuff set up here at Deep South Homestead, because I think that they've got some great ideas. I think they're on the right track about some things, you know. Granted, where I live at here, it's pretty hot, and then where they live at, it's pretty hot also. So, I mean, they get it when it comes to being humidity and heat. Now, you have a lot of people who live off-grid up in the northern states, Idaho, and a lot of these places up in there, and it may get hot for a week or two out of the year, but it ain't nothing like it is here. You know, the humidity. I've been up north, and I've worked up north. I know what I'm talking about. It's just tough down here to live without any kind of means of electricity to stay cool. You know, whether it be a fan running in the window or whatever. These are things, our forefathers didn't have any of this, y'all. They were tough. They survived or they died. You know, that's just the bottom line. So on the 4th of July here today, as we sit back and we go to celebrate our independence and our freedom, think about the life that our forefathers lived. It wasn't the glory train that we live today. You know, a lot of the third world countries don't have the things in life that we have. They have to struggle just like our forefathers did, and they know how to use a lot of these tools. They have oxen and mules and stuff like that, and they get out with old hand tools, and they take a shoulder blade off of an animal, and they make a hoe to dig in the ground with and stuff like that. You know, in our country, I'm not sure if something happens that we can actually, you know, we've had that disconnect, y'all. And at Deep South Homestead, that's our goal. It's like I said, not to push anything on you, but to show you some of these tools and to show you how our forefathers done things. Now, I got to wrap this up. So, just want to tell y'all, we love you, and we really, it is our desire to bring some of this stuff to y'all's attention and to show you and to tell you maybe a little bit how it's used. And maybe on your homestead you might want to try to find some of these things just in case a life-changing event takes place, because, my friend, if the grid system goes down, we go back to the 1800s. And that is a good possibility with all the CMEs coming in, the coronal mass ejections, and all the earthquakes that's starting to happen now. We've got Yellowstone volcano everybody's talking about, that it's really at the point it may erupt, and you know, I worry about a lot of that stuff for the people out there, but we all face our problems. You know, we have hurricanes here. The middle of the United States has tornadoes bad. I mean, we all have our problems where we live at. Nobody's immune. But the good thing about having some of these tools like this is if something happens and you have no electricity, you got a wood heater in your house, and some wood, you can stay warm in the wintertime. You know, if you got a hoe, you can make a garden. You got some seeds, you can make a garden. You know, if you got a hand pump well, you can get some water. Yeah, there's just some things that people we just need to think about. Just remember, homesteading is a new thing. Our forefathers didn't call it that. It was just called living back then. So, with that being said, I'm going to say, have a happy 4th of July and have a safe 4th of July. And we will see y'all next Tuesday. Thank you from Deep South Homestead.